Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CoCo Show. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we've got two sweet, awesome games to talk about. We're going to be talking about Downland and Zenix.
Yeah. How many times did you type Downland into your search thing and type in download?
Yeah.
Every time.
Every
I couldn't
time
stop myself.
answer.
My hand would just not type Downland in there.
You know, if you were going to name a game Downland, would you make it about this? Would you make it a cavern, sprawling adventure?
It works. Ironically, this was not the original title intended for Downland.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
let's just jump right into it.
Yeah,
then.
shall we? So, and you know, of course, I'm guessing you never played this one, had you, Boaster?
Never.
Now, I hadn't either. And it's funny because I distinctly remember seeing the opening screen for this somewhere, and maybe even seeing the game, but I don't remember having any interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and of course, you know me. It's like this game was like they built it for me. It's like,
Right.
Here you go. So, Downland, published by an outfit called Spectral Associates.
I saw that. It's a very...
That's a super cool name.
we should have saved this one for the Halloween show.
Yeah, no, because no kidding. Released in '83, and this was developed by the guys over there as well. Now, this came out, of course, for the CoCo and slash the Dragon folks.
Now, had the CoCo 2 had already been released by '83, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now this one will run on the CoCo 1 and 2 with 16K, but get this. This has issues running on the CoCo 3 with the cartridge because they put some kind of wacky copy protection on it.
We've heard this story before.
Yeah, and so what it did was it wouldn't work properly. Now it's funny. I read a note on a couple of different areas where you could take the cartridge and you could put some tape over it. You know,
RoboCop dongle ahoy.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. And so luckily, since I'm playing this off the SD card, CoCo SD, no problems. It ran. I didn't have any troubles at all running it. This game was originally going. The author of this guy is a guy called Michael, and I'm going to try to lay this down.
Okay.
Acclamare.
That sounds pretty good, man.
Okay, Acclamare.
It's like an award-winning horse.
Anyway, he was going to originally call this game Cavern Climber, but then he knew about a game that was coming out from Steve Bajork called Canyon Climber.
Right,
and
a little
so
bit too close.
He
too close
changed
to the
it.
mark.
He changed it to Downland, which that's kind of neat. Something else that was out there was the original game. The original version of this game was too big to fit on the 8K ROM that Tandy wanted, so they had to drop some of the original setup of the game to make it fit. So I think that's kind of neat. So, like I said, if you've got a CoCo 3 and you're actually trying to buy this cartridge, I think I own this cartridge. I think this was amongst the cartridges that came in that huge haul I had.
Oh, okay.
You know, I wish I thought about that. But I think this was one of them because I remember looking at the actual cover of the cartridge and thinking like, oh, I think I recognize this. So, what is Downland? Downland is sort of your classic run and jump platformer with some interesting twists and sort of an exploration element to it. You play a guy who is in a cavern and he's going through and exploring, and you're picking up keys to open up doors.
Now your guy is not named, right?
I don't think he's named.
Okay.
The guy looks sort of like he looks sort of like a Mario type.
Mm-hmm. I think he looks much more like Mario than a Manic Miner or a Hard Hat Harry or anybody like that.
It's funny, I was just talking to Curtis, and I was just telling Boat that a lot of the information I get for these CoCo games come off of a site called, and I'm going to say this now, lcurtisboyle.com.
Okay.
Right? Simple. And a lot of these games you can access the database here. Curtis is actually one of our buddies here. He's in the chat right now. And he's been pretty much coming to our show since we started it up. Real nice fellow. And his site is ripe with information. And so you get the full scoop. But he was just saying that the fellow that made this, when interviewed, said that he'd never played Donkey Kong before he made it. So and this is nothing like Donkey Kong in terms of the actual game, but it's jump around and your guy sort of looks like a Mario type. But that's pretty much where the similarities in. So you're in a cavern. This cavern is interesting in that there are droplets coming off the ceiling in this cavern that are deadly. And you are tasked with running through the cavern.
That's what they should have called this game, Deadly Droplets.
Deadly Droplets, yeah, man. You're running through the cavern and going through various doors to get to the end. The neat thing about this, and this really blows my mind on a CoCo game, Boatster, is the exploration element of this is there, and it's in full force, because these are single screen caverns that you go through, but the caverns lead to other caverns, so it's like almost like exploring a cave system. And so and you will have it's not just like you solve one cavern and get to the other one. You have to go back and forth between doors to get the keys to go to other doors.
I think that's fantastic.
Let me tell you something. It's not like this fellow just sat down and said, just put some levels in, wham, bam. I mean, you had to think about how this is going to work.
He had this mapped out for sure.
Yeah, the level design in this is quite good. It's very, very good. And your guy has quite a few abilities. Of course, he can run, he can jump, he can go up and down vines, and he can also shimmy across like ropes sideways. You are avoiding mostly those droplets, but there also is a bouncing like a ball that comes out occasionally. I hate that ball.
It's the worst.
That ball is my least favorite thing in the game, is trying to avoid this ball. Now,
that's not the only thing that can kill you, though.
No.
This game has the one of my least favorite things about classic gaming, the dreaded fall death.
Yep, fall death.
If you fall more than the height of your character, you will die.
That's right. That comes into play a lot, because you can exit these ropes whenever you want, to be honest with you. But if you exit them too high, you'll die. Now, you can jump from rope to rope without any trouble. You know what, this game doesn't remind me as much of Donkey Kong as the play elements remind me a lot more of Donkey Kong Jr. Because there are vines involved, those ledges, especially if you look scattered throughout the game are like little mini vines, and you're like, what are these there for? And what they're there for is to avoid, like the ball, for example. You can get just high enough that thing will roll under you. When this ball comes around, this thing is a pain, because it bounces pretty high, and your jump guy is not what I would call commander jump.
No.
You know, me and Brent covered a game this week called Jump Man, ironically, where Jump Man, he barely jumped at all. He sucked.
He's got my vertical.
Yeah, so this guy's better than him, but not a ton. And this guy can jump a little further, but the ball is tricky to jump over no matter what. Plus, when it first builds up momentum, the jumps are a little higher, and it's real tough to negotiate in a boat. But as you go through here, and you're picking up little diamonds, you're picking up your keys, you're going through, you're avoiding the balls and the droplets. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, a lot of the elements of it are very Donkey Kong Jr.-esque, even to the point where your guy can hang off the rope or vine with one arm, like Donkey Kong Jr. could. So that's another element of it I really dug it. I'll be honest with you. I knew of this game. I mean, like I said, I've seen it before, but back when I never had played this until we got it ready for the show.
Really?
Yeah, I never played this, and I don't know how I missed it, because it's got all the elements I like. The downside for me, and I know this is part of the game, but I don't like the ball. I think the ball sort of appears off the side of the screen, and it comes out as soon as it goes off the screen. It comes back in, right. So you can time it, but here's the thing.
Here's the thing about the ball too. It doesn't fit in with the theme of the game. Like the droplets, you're in a cave. That makes sense. You know, if you're going to have some sort of thing like the bat also makes sense. You're in a cave. What's this bouncing ball, this infinite bouncing ball, doing in a cave?
Yeah, that's my least favorite element. I will say there are some. It's not an easy game. I did not get super far. I could get maybe. I think there are 10 total chambers. I did not complete this. I can say that right now.
In fact, I think I got to chamber 3.
I got to chamber. I think I got to 4th chamber.
I'll tell you another thing that I had trouble with. In fact, this was the reason why I could not progress. Is I couldn't figure out exactly how to utilize the steps on the sides of the walls. There's little notches.
Yeah.
Where if you hit them just right, you can actually stand on the wall.
You're basically ledge hopping effectively.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure out exactly. You know, I tried to figure out how that mechanic worked, how to make it stick 100% of the time, and I was just not able to be consistent.
It's not the easiest thing to do. Those are introduced, I think, in the 3rd cavern, and those they're tricky. I mean, like I said, but the first time I didn't know what to do with them. In fact, I just thought they were part of the cave for the longest time. But you get to some areas where you have to use them because the stuff on the ceiling is coming too close to the rope, or there's an enemy you have to get around. Another thing that was tough is like when you have those step ledges that you go up, you can't just jump from ledge to ledge. You have to be at the very, very edge. And so what that meant is you'd hit those and you'd have to negotiate your way to the very edge and then bounce backwards, and it was difficult. And what made it worse is if you went too far, you would fall off, and you'd either fall too far and die, or that stupid ball would hit you, or a drop would hit you. It was real tough. And the drops, the drops, unlike the ball, they just sort of randomly appear in different areas, and so they can be real tough to negotiate as well. It's not the easiest game, but it's a game where, in my opinion, and I played this game a lot, because you know this is right up my alley. I think you could get good at this game if you gave it enough practice, and I'm hoping I get to the point where I suck less, having just started playing it for the last couple weeks. But I loved all the elements. I thought it was a real fun game.
And this game kept me coming back too, because it kept me coming back until level 3. Because anytime that I died, I was like, okay, that was on me. That was not a cheap death.
Right.
And if I could figure out how to step on the steps in a way that was consistent, then and that'll just come with more time.
Some other things that I wanted to mention on this one is that it also included 2-player support, which is nice. It's got a real nice intro screen with the cavern, with the drops. When you're playing 2 players, it actually pauses the action and says, tells player 2 to get up. It's got multi-joystick support, so you can have your 2 players. It's got a high score save, not save, but as long as
high score table,
right, which is cool. It's just a one high score.
And I thought that the title screen, so many games from this era, the title screen is basically just blank text. I like the fact that he drew a little cavern around it, had the drops falling. It's a nice touch.
This game really caught me off guard. I'll be honest with you, and I guess we're tardy to the party on this one, but that's why we're doing this, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, but I dug it overall. I actually found a couple places that reviewed this. I looked high and low to find anyone that gives these things a score, and so I've came across the Color Computer review site gave this game an A-, which it was one of the highest ranked games that they had. And then the GameFAQs, believe it or not, there was a GameFAQs score for this that was they gave it 3 stars out of 5, so not too bad. I would rank this very high. I mean, this is a playable game on any system. It's a lot of fun. It controls well once you understand the controls. Once you understand how what they want, and it controls real well, and it's a lot of fun. And I've got to beat it, because I can't live with myself without doing it. Now, keep in mind that I said the same thing about Donkey Kong 2, and I've yet to beat it either, so it could take me years, but I'll get around to it eventually. I looked these up on eBay, and believe it or not, these are actually going for a few bucks. I found loose carts. Now, we've talked about the boxes on the CoCo. They're not really what you would call a proper box. These are all loose. $13, $22, $29. So somewhere in the $15 to $30 range, you can pick this up. Probably, if you look right, you could probably get a deal.
Yeah. Now, since we are in early days of our show, I just wanted to tell everybody that just as with all the other shows on Amigos Retro Gaming, if you are a member of our Discord channel, you can post a review of the games that we review in the CoCo Show Reviews channel. And we will read those on the air. So we encourage all of you who are Patreon supporters and any future supporters to please do so, because we want to hear your take on these games. Aaron, before we go on to the next game,
all right,
I thought we'd take a little break in the action and do a quick hardware update, because there has been a new piece of hardware that's come into my life since last night.
Yeah,
it's actually right to your left. You want to pull it out there?
Yeah, sure. I couldn't believe this boat. I'll be honest with you. I've never been as shocked as I was when you told me that you were interested in picking this up. So, whoops. Ignore that. There you go.
So this is a CoCo 2 that I told Aaron, because I knew that he had an extra one. Aaron, why don't you tell us the story of how you came upon this CoCo 2?
As you all know, I've made this abundantly clear that I will hit the flea market now and again. So I was over at the Hillbilly Flea Market, Greenup, Kentucky. The fine folks in Greenup.
They are the finest folks.
And I was nosing around. There are actually 2 or 3 different kind of classic gaming stores there that sell like that stuff. And lo and behold, I roll across, and there it is. Color Computer 2. Now, I hadn't seen one of these things in the wild for a million years. And it's not something you come across. It's money because CoCo was a big seller, but it's not something I come across. I mean, ever, you know. I don't know if people don't think they're selling or worth selling, or if I don't know what it is. But anyway, this thing was sitting there, and I negotiated a price with these boys. And in fact, I believe I picked this up. I know I mentioned on the Amigas, I believe they were having that conversation about whether the Russians owned all of our, or the Chinese owned all of our national parks. this conversation, because I remember I had to go out and get money to come back, and they were still having this conversation. So this is a hot topic over at the Hillbilly Flea Market.
Yeah.
But I picked this up, and it came with a brilliant cartridge that was, I think it was some sort of database.
I think it's actually just called database.
Yeah, and I took this thing to the shop, cleaned it up. It wasn't working when I first got it. I cleaned it up, cleaned all the connectors. And it works great, no problem. So what do you have planned for this thing, Bo?
So I've got big plans for this CoCo 2. I have put it in order with the one and only Ed Snyder, creator of the CoCo 2 SD gimmick.
It's a must.
Yeah,
it's a must.
I've also ordered a pair of Atari to CoCo joystick adapters.
Also good.
And in the future, I will also order an original CoCo stick for those games that require the analog controls.
Yeah.
So this thing is going to be. Curtis asked in this chat, he said he hopes it's 64K. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, right?
It is.
And this is...
I believe it's actually written on the front. Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah. So very, very cool. I was so glad
There's your melted keyboard, by the way,
to pick this up from Aaron. This is my favorite looking of all the CoCo computers with the melted keyboard. So I can't wait to fire this thing up and do some live streaming from actual CoCo hardware.
Has some yellowing.
Yeah.
Should be like, now, Bud, have you decided what you're gonna do with the video on this thing? You gonna keep it the way it is?
No, in fact, another thing that I ordered from Ed was the composite mod.
Oh,
so
boy.
I will be installing that mod and running it direct into the capture card, so we can capture some glorious video footage of the CoCo 2.
That's gonna be amazing. So that'll be a lot of fun. Well, good. I'm glad you get some use out of it. It was in a box. Once I got the CoCo 3, unfortunately, the Hillbilly Flea Market version got kicked to the curb.
I understand, man. Yeah. I understand. All right, Aaron, let's talk about the next game on the list here is Zenix.
Now, we were introduced, again, I'm going to give Curtis his props here. We were introduced to this when we were playing, it was actually a month ago, next week.
Case Valley Classic Computer Club.
Yeah, it was our Classic Computer Club meeting. It was a CoCo fun night for a while. And we were just trying all kinds of crazy games. And so this is another one that I'd never heard of or never played. And the reason I never heard of it, of course, is because it was a late arriver. This came out, the name of the game is Zenix, Z-E-N-I-X, or Zenix. How do you pronounce it? Let's go with Zenix.
We'll cover them both.
This came out in 1989, Boatster.
Another number.
And was authored by Jeremy Spiller and Mike Newell, and published by GoSub Software, and then eventually Sundog Software published it as well. So this game is a CoCo 3 game, and this requires 128K of RAM. So you're out of luck on this one.
Now the CoCo 3 shipped with 128 right out of the box, right?
Yeah. And then you could go up from there.
Right.
Now, so when this thing honed into view, I have to say, it starts off and you're like, oh, it's some kind of Space Invaders costume. And what you end up getting here is quite a visual treat.
Absolutely.
I mean, what were describe to the people this game and what you thought about when we first played it and had a look at it.
When we first played this, I could not believe I was looking at a CoCo game. Because this thing looks right out of, obviously it does not look like an arcade game from 1989, but it looks like an arcade game from, say, 1983. It is very, very impressive. Everything from the enemy movement to the parallax scrolling of the star field to the statistics that you get when you complete a level. I mean, this thing is very, very impressive.
Yeah. This game, from what I've read, is 30 levels, and let's say in the Galaxian style, they're really, I mean, yes, they were making sort of a Galaxian style, or a Galaga, I should say, clone, but they've expanded on it in some interesting ways. And plus, there are things in here that you don't get with a Galaga. For starters, this has if you've ever played Gorf, and I'm sure you've played Gorf, in Gorf, you get a little up and down action at the bottom of the screen where you get the same thing in this. And by the way, you'll be required to move your ship up and down because there are often things with buzz bomb on the bottom of the screen. You're going to have to move up or you're going to get killed.
Right.
You also have a fuel gauge at the bottom that tells you how much fuel you got. Effectively, think hit points.
It doubles as your it's your life gauge.
And so every time you get hit, you'll hear a noise, and that thing will go. We should talk about the sound in this. This thing makes noise I've never heard the CoCo make before.
Well, first of all, it's also got a full soundtrack.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's great.
Yeah.
It makes noise that I'm having played a lot of CoCos. I've never heard these noises. They're very unique. They're very unique noises that come out of this thing, and the fact that this thing runs fast, doesn't it, Bo?
Yeah, fast. It
does.
There's no slowdown whatsoever.
It goes fast. Of course, in the true true shooter fashion, you've got an occasional power up you can get that will provide you with different types of shooting and whatnot, or fuel pickup. And it's even got bonus stage, just like a Galaga does, where you go through. And the bonus stages in this are tough. They're real tough, and they're long, and they're difficult. Whereas a Galaga would bring stuff from the bottom of the screen down, this one has stuff coming from the side, coming down. Something else that we have to talk about is when you hit these ships, instead of some ships just explode, but sometimes they actually shooters jet off. Like it reminds me of when you shoot one of those fuel barrels and they shoot off.
Yeah.
And this cloud that forms it also sort of reminds me of Gore for Wizard of War. It's got a pitch to it. It's just the strangest looking graphic. I mean, how would you describe that?
Think Gorf. Think the explosions in Gorf. It's a pink and yellow flashing explosion that just is very, very impressive.
Yeah. Now, I did not get far enough to see this, but this game actually you're on a mission, and the mission is to blow up the enemy's home world.
Yeah, it is.
Did you know that?
No, but I'm sure. I mean, what other mission could there be?
And
here?
So I guess, but there are boss fights in this, which is also something that's unique. There are different types of ships that can take different amounts of damage that you fight. I mean, it's really, and they come out in different patterns. It really doesn't get old. The funny thing about it is as you play it, you can not be a great player and do pretty well at this. But when this thing cranks up the pressure, you know it. I mean, we talk about games that are too hard out of the gate. These guys got it right. This game starts out relatively simply and then ramps up.
Yeah.
But you get plenty of playtime in there. And if you're not that good at it, you can still have a good time.
Yeah, here's the thing. Because they chose to go with a life bar instead of a one-hit kill type situation.
Oh, thank God.
You can play a good long time, even on your first game, and you feel like you've accomplished something. It's great.
I agree. You can also, it allows you to start at different levels if you want to. So you can if you want to start at a higher level, you can do that. It was a real well thought out game.
This reminds me so much of the thought and care that went into Deluxe Galaga on the Amiga. I mean, they're taking an arcade concept, they're improving upon it, and they're making it special for computer owners. They're not just doing an arcade.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Deluxe Galaga, which we covered on our Amiga show for the Amiga, and this, you're right. This does have this is not as advanced as that, but this is on par with how advanced it could be given the system it's on. You got to remember, this is running on something you're looking at something that's running around 1.8 megahertz.
Yeah.
And it runs as smooth and as quick. I mean, there's a lot of the CoCo has a ton of these, like cloned Space Invaders and cloned Galagas and Galaxias and stuff. And with varying degrees of success, but there's none that I've played that runs. It's in the same ballpark of how this one runs. I mean, this thing goes.
Yeah,
it goes, and it's quite a treat, to be honest with you. I endorse it. I love it. I think it was a lot of fun. I did not see. I didn't see this on eBay. I'm not sure how this is even distributed. I didn't see it for sale anywhere. I didn't see any reviews of it. I saw plenty of people talking about it, but it was not something so I assumed the only way you could get it is to just grab it somewhere. I don't know
on a BBS back in the day. These days, the old Internet Archive.
I'm assuming. I don't know if this even was even actually distributed on tape. I assume it was. It was, like I said, I think it was actually disc. Now that I think about it, this was disc only. So you're gonna that. There's no cartridge for it, I guess.
Yeah, according to Curtis in the chat, Jeremy he's released it to the public with the source code, and you can find it on his website today.
Oh, the source code, pretty neat. That's kind of crazy, man. That's really neat. So Great games. Is this how do you put this amongst the stuff we've played? Granted,
well, this is still early days in my CoCo life, but by far, this is the best looking, sounding, and playing game that I've ever seen on the CoCo.
This really gives you an idea of what could have been done. And I will say, musically, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the CoCo surpasses a lot of the makers of the day in music. I mean, it could really crank out some pretty decent music.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it's got that classic computer sound that I enjoy.
A little bit fuzzy.
I love that. You know, and I do remember that's one of my favorite things about the CoCo. You can sit down and play some nice tunes on it. I remember loading stuff up just to listen to it. You know, so that takes me back. But yeah, this I feel like we're jumping instantly in the deep end here because these are both the games we covered this week are two really spectacular games.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron. As we come to the end of the show, I want to thank the fine folks that chose those games for us, members of the CoCo Show Game Selection Committee over on Patreon. Graham Bebke and Wing Chun Wolf selected those games. If you would like to be part of the team that picks the games that we play, head on over to patreon.com/The CoCo Show. We also want to thank our CoCo Show supporter, Jeff Landreth, for supporting the show. And we'll share some big news. The CoCo Show, because of the support that we've received already, is increasing from once a month to bi-monthly. And so we are, and eventually, if we get to the point where we have some more game requests coming in from folks, we're gonna move to full-on monthly. So look forward to that. And guys, we really just, we've received so much, so many great messages, so many positive messages from people in the CoCo community. You've really welcomed us with open arms as the new kid on the block. All the fine folks over at the CoCo Talk Show, and what's the other one?
The CoCo Crew.
The CoCo Crew, yeah. So it's not easy coming into an already established community, and you guys have been super friendly. So we really appreciate it.
It's very rare that I get to be the new kid at anything.
Yeah,
I'm the old guy at everything.
All right. Well, thanks as always for listening. If you want to watch this show live, we record each show live over at twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming. So you can check that out. And of course, we can be found on anchor.fm/The CoCo Show. You can find links to all the podcatchers there if you want to listen to the audio version of the show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Adios.